I'm not good at goodbyes. I miss the sunshine in your eyes. Who said cowboys don't cry? Come on, baby, let's take one last ride. We're riding around this carousel, if you catch my drift. We're riding around this wagon wheel, she took me for a spin. We're riding around this carousel, getting dizzy till we're sick. Love is like a circle, there's no easy way to end. It's too much, I can't take anymore. Stuck feeling like we've been here before. But now the sun stopped shining here in the Wild West. My heart stopped beating and it sunk into my chest. We're riding around this carousel, if you catch my drift. We're riding around this wagon wheel, she took me for a spin. We're riding around this carousel, getting dizzy till we're sick. Love is like a circle, there's no easy way to end. Just an outlaw who only had one friend. I wonder if I'll ever see her face again. Dark clouds hanging over, they follow where I've been. My cowboy tears are still blowing in the wind. We're riding around this carousel, if you catch my drift. We're riding around this wagon wheel, she took me for a spin. We're riding around this carousel, getting dizzy till we're sick. Love is like a circle, there's no easy way to end. I'm not good at goodbyes. I miss the sunshine in your eyes. Who said cowboys don't cry? Come on, baby, let's take one last ride. We're riding around this carousel, if you catch my drift. We're riding around this wagon wheel, she took me for a spin. We're riding around this carousel, getting dizzy till we're sick. Love is like a circle, there's no easy way to end.
All right, so we're going to be talking about how the Oklahoma City bombing led to the war in Ukraine. So, in this picture right here, we've got Helmut Kohl and Bill Clinton sitting next to each other. President Clinton, obviously former governor of Arkansas during the Iran Contras, helped to smuggle cocaine in there allegedly, and had some relations with some pilots who may come up in this story a little later on. He was also obviously involved in the Oklahoma City bombing, and he was also having some issues with his voter base at the time, and he also had some scandals going on with Israeli blackmail. At the time, Clinton was not looking so good as far as his approval ratings. In 1994, he had lost the House and Senate to the Republicans. He was looking for something to help his presidency coming into midterms. Then we have Mr. Helmut Kohl, who was the former Chancellor of Germany and one of the longest running chancellors. He was having an issue in his country during their meeting. One of the big issues, aside from him being a staunch anti-communist and wanting to meet with Bill Clinton about moving eastward with NATO after his um, reunification of Germany that he was responsible for. At the time, the German government was having an issue with neo Nazis. Um, and one of the problems that was arising was because in Germany, the Nazi literature is strictly verboten. And so the way that it would come here was from the Americas. And one of the people involved in that was a guy named Gary Locke. And so he looks like this, beautiful fellow. And in March, after their meeting, he was arrested in Denmark. And he was the largest publisher of American Nazi materials. And so what they needed, well, what Mr. Helmut Kohl needed was help from Mr. Bill Clinton to solve his Nazi problem. And so they met in February 9th and discussed a few things, some of it being Russia, North Korea, at the same time, also Clinton was having issues with government budgets. They were trying to cut spending, especially with the three-letter agencies. And so after their meeting, uh, Mr. Clinton went to Congress and started a immediate consideration and enactment for his Omnibus Counterterrorism Act of 1995. Remember, this is February 9th of 1995. So in Arkansas, where Mr. Clinton was from, we have a gentleman named Richard Wayne Snell. Now, Mr. Richard Wayne Snell was a white supremacist, and he got himself in trouble because he killed a pawn shop owner that he mistook for being Jewish. And then on his way to running some guns for his Nazi movement, he had a van full of them and got pulled over by a black highway patrolman who he immediately shot and killed, and then went on the run. He was eventually caught and sentenced to death for his murders on April 19th of 1995. And during, obviously, the same day, the Oklahoma City bombing happened. Now, one of the theories that people think that this bombing took place was not just because of Timothy McVeigh's ties to watching the Waco situation go down, but also because he was possibly getting revenge because of the ties to the white separatist movement or white nationalist, white Christian identity movement. And they had also warned that, or Mr. Richard Snell warned that they'll pay for executing him. And so, along with being a witness to Waco, which was the primary theory of why Timothy McVeigh did what he did, there was also the theory that they chose that date because of Richard Snell's execution. And so one of the witnesses during the day of Richard Snell's execution, they said that they saw him smiling and chuckling and nodding. And so I believe there's ties to Elohim City. And so Mr. Timothy McVeigh, to give you a little bit of history, was a big aficionado of the guns and firearms, and speaking about conspiracy theories and being anti-government. And during his travels on the gun show circuit, he met a few people. One of them being Andreas Strassmeyer, and another one being Richard Moore. Now, Mr. Andreas Strassmeyer, who I already spoke about a little bit, who he was the son of Gunter Strassman, or Strassmeyer, who was the chief of staff of Helmut Kohl. Some people say during the depositions of Terry Nichols and Timothy McVeigh that the defense said that Andreas Strassmeyer's great-great-grandfather was actually one of the creators of the Nazi Party. And what's interesting about Mr. Strassmeyer here is that he came to America and stayed here illegally, passed his visa, and was trying to find a girl to keep him in the country. He had gotten kicked out of a white separatist movement originally because he was essentially Fed posting, and that's when he moved to Elohim City, which is where Timothy McVeigh made some connections to this white supremacist group that would be the Aryan Republic Army, or Aryan Republican Army. I always forget it. ARA. And Mr. Strassmeyer, his background, aside from being the son of Gunter Strassman, the chief of staff of Helmut Kohl, he was a former military. I believe he made it to lieutenant. He was in the Panzer Grenadier Battalion. He underwent military training in intelligence, reconnaissance, and counterinsurgency, as well as being an explosives expert. And so when he was over there, he made friends in this circle and happened to meet Mr. Timothy McVeigh and also a woman named Carol Howe, who was one of the chief witnesses and kind of agents connected to exposing this. And she warned the ATF and the FBI. She had an FBI handler named Angela Graham, and she warned them multiple times that this is going to happen, and that Andy Strassmeyer, who was nicknamed German Andy, was always talking about blowing up federal buildings. And one of the things that's very interesting about Andy Strassmeyer, I'll play a clip of him, aside from being the son of Gunter Strassmeyer, was that he spent time on kibbutz in Israel. And he was very fluent in Hebrew, which was very odd and little strange that this group in Elohim City called themselves, said that the Aryans were the chosen people. And so let me go ahead and play you a clip.
I have for you, like, were you ever a true believer in white supremacy or anything like that, or how did you find yourself consorting?
I'm a very staunch Zionist, to be honest. Pro-Israel, I spend a lot of time in Israel. I have friends over there, and I never subscribe to any. And I'm probably, well, how would I describe in politics? I'm a libertarian socialist, right? And I believe in freedom of speech and freedom of to own firearms and all this stuff. So I was very sympathetic to the Patriot movement back then. And I'm also very critical to the government when the government becomes oppressive. And like with people, like, let's say, even people's extreme views I don't agree with. I don't agree when the government comes after them, locks them up, or shoots them or stuff like this. That's exactly what happened in Ruby Ridge and Waco.
I believe that was a clip from Ken Silva's interview with him on that played on Scott Horton's podcast. If you want to go look that up, here's a little bit more about Andres Strassmeyer. He was obviously a former soldier, as we spoke about. He made it, like I said, to lieutenant in the German army. Very interesting that he kind of dropped out, as well as Timothy McVeigh, who was about to undergo special forces training and then all of a sudden decided that he did not want to partake anymore in being in the military before the special forces training was going to go on. He also met with Kirk Lyons, who was the one that introduced Strassmeyer to Elohim City. And that's where Strassmeyer ended up living. Kirk Lyons was a lawyer who represented a lot of the white supremacists in any of their issues. As you can see here, Carol Howe informed her agency handler about Andreas Strassmeyer and how he would frequently talk about blowing up federal buildings and using direct action against the U.S. government. At the time, Carol was unaware of Strassmeyer's full name and simply knew him as Andy the German. So there's another person who we should speak about named Mr. Roger Moore, not the actor who played James Bond. Roger Moore right here was who they used as supposedly a patsy. You can kind of decide what you think about that. But Roger Moore was a acquaintance of Timothy McVeigh through the gun circuit, as well as having an interesting background where he was kind of involved in the Iran-Contras. He was also involved in a group that was stealing items, including 2 jet engines from the military storages, as well as he got caught with C4 explosives or kinestic caps, I believe it was KINESTIK. And they were originally going to charge him and then all of a sudden decided to just let him go. He also owned a company that was responsible for selling speedboats to the military during Vietnam. He was rather wealthy. He was also possibly selling vehicles or speedboats to the CIA, especially during their attempt at mining the Nicaraguan ports. And obviously that's another tie to the Iran-Contras. And he was supposedly unaware of this heist and who robbed him, and didn't have anything to do with it, of the funding of the Oklahoma City bombing, where Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols both robbed his house and stole gold, gems, and firearms, in which they used to fund the plot. During Terry Nichols' testimony, he said that, and this was never checked in on, that if you went and looked underneath his house, that you would find fingerprints on some explosives, but this was never followed up upon. uh, Roger Moore. Let's see, I believe, trying to remember, he also had ties to, trying to remember, uh, but anyway, so Roger Moore right there, where they supposedly got their money. One of the things that was funding these groups that were tied to Elohim City was bank robberies, and that's how we got a lot of the information actually about the uh, the FOIA acts about um, the Oklahoma City bombing is because of a man named Kenneth Trinidad. And he, as you can see, has a little tattoo on his arm and ended up getting picked up after coming back into the States from Mexico. And he was thought to have been confused with, I believe, uh, Richard Guthrie, or one of the other guys that was involved in this white supremacist group that was robbing banks and going back and living in Elohim City. Um, so he got picked up, put into prison, and during that little stint in jail, um, he was found dead and murdered. And for the longest time, there was not really any answers until his brother, who was a very good lawyer, ended up getting a tip after a long time of not understanding why his brother was killed, that his brother was killed by the FBI during an interrogation that went wrong. And apparently, he matched up with one of the suspects of the Oklahoma City bombing, and it seemed like they were trying to cut the ties and cut loose ends because he was found tortured um, by having his feet um, tasered, and he was found with lacerations that looked like he was tied down. He was bruised and beaten pretty bad, but also showed signs of putting up quite a fight. And so, again, this was Carol Howe, who also spilled the beans on this group as well. I don't remember if I showed some pictures of her. This is her training with the group. And she actually came from a rather rich family, very much like Andrea Strassmeyer, who she had basically everything going for her and then ended up deciding to rebel. And it wasn't until she was on board with everything except for she wanted to cut her ties to I believe it was Miller, who was one of the leaders of one of these white separatist groups, and she accused him of rape once she tried to leave him. And so then she ended up becoming an informant after a ATF or FBI officer found her case, and that's how she got involved in this. So then we have let's see, we have, I don't remember if I brought up also Helmut Kohl, as I said, um, wanted to expand NATO with Bill Clinton in 1990. He was a staunch anti communist, and one of the groups that after Mr. Clinton met, well, let's go back to this right here. So during April 15th, a few days before the bombing, Clinton was discussing uh, 2 days prior to that announcement. Then, after the Oklahoma City bombing, that happened on April 19th. He kind of became the mourner in chief to people, and it kind of saved his career. As you can see, I believe I said already that his ratings, approval ratings, were kind of in the toilet until that happened. And in 1996, according to Ambrose Evans Pritchard, during his interviewing or while it was on Air Force One, witnessed Bill Clinton say that Oklahoma City bombing basically saved his political career. So then, after that happened, we have in May 3rd, Clinton transmitted the Anti-Terrorism Amendments Act of 1995 to Congress in a message outlining the changes to be made in the event that the legislation was passed, and touts it as part of the administration's effort to fight against domestic and international terrorism. The day afterwards, he met with the American Jewish Community, and this group right here goes back to our anti-terrorism or anti-communism group. And the reason that this is very interesting is because, let's see. Sorry, I gotta find the AJC. Let me play a clip of also during the Oklahoma City bombing. It was also thought that weapons were being held in the building. Obviously, if you're familiar with Oklahoma City bombing, the day of, the ATF decided not to show up. They were warned, according to, I don't remember who, but they were warned not to go to work that day. And even at 8 o'clock in the morning, the bomb squad showed up to of JD Cash, explaining that there was weapons found in the Oklahoma City bombing building, or the Arthur Murrah Federal Building.
Following that initial interview with Dr. Brown back on the 1st of May, I talked to Dick Miller, who's the Assistant Fire Marshal for the Oklahoma City Fire Marshal's office. And he, in very clear terms, readily admitted that there were explosives removed, devices that were removed from the Murrah building, which caused the evacuation of the rescue workers on at least 3 different occasions. And it's important for people to understand that while they are in the process of removing these explosives, people are left bleeding to death and dying. This was a very real situation. I know now, as we have all heard since, that the new story that comes out from the ATF and the FBI is that these were nothing but training devices. Most absolutely ludicrous excuse that if anyone believes that, they're overlooking the very simple and obvious fact that experts went into that building, experts removed police, fire, and civilian rescuers and moved them blocks away while they endeavored to remove all of these explosive devices. Dick Miller told me that the 1030, we'll call it bomb scare, was related to a 2-foot by 2-foot by 2-foot box marked high explosives. In a subsequent interview with another reporter, he explained that he watched the bomb squad haul that off, load that up and haul it off, and what it was percussion caps. And these are percussion caps that are used for C4. I have speculated early that the ATF, Secret Service, and DEA was likely storing explosives illegally in the building in their arsenal rooms. Sure enough, as time goes by, witnesses come forward, I have discovered that indeed the DEA and the ATF had arsenal rooms on the 9th floor. I've obtained photographs of the ATF arsenal room. I have 4 different live witnesses on tape who have said that they watched the ATF unload their arsenal room 2 weeks after the blast. They helped them load different devices, firearms of every firearm known to man, hundreds of thousands of rounds of ammunition, explosives, boxes marked explosives, tow missiles, hand grenades, just about everything short of a T-72 Russian tank was in that building.
Along with also the theory that it wasn't just the truck that blew up. If you look at the building, and according to several explosives experts, it looks as if the building had multiple bombs go off in it, not outside of it. This is kind of interesting when you go back to how Mr. Richard Snell, who was one of our original protagonists from Arkansas, had plotted to blow up the same federal building. Also, at the same time, in I believe it was 1991, it was 1991 or 1993, that the first attack on the World Trade Centers happened that doesn't get that much attention. It was also a failed plot. The only reason that Richard Snell decided not to go on with his plan of using improvised rocket launchers to launch at the building was that during the building of these improvised rocket launchers, he had one blow up on him and decided that this was a sign from God not to proceed with this and that someone else was going to handle it for him. So we have now I have pictures here of this group called the AJC, which Mr. Clinton met with after his enactment of this bill. Now, one of the things that you may have noticed recently, especially with influencers like Shapiro or some of these very pro-Israel people, is that not only are they very anti-immigrant, but they're also anti-communist, which is very odd because all of the NGOs that bring in illegal immigrants are run by Jewish individuals. The same thing with the Bolsheviks. It's interesting that there would be the largest Jewish committee, the largest Jewish group, the AJC, would be so against communists. They were very pro the Rosenbergs, who were traitors being executed. And you'll see this pattern on Twitter with a lot of people like Tommy Robinson or the AFD or these other groups that say that they're pro the West and pushing family values, anti-Islam, and all of this stuff. How, let's see, they also were pivotal in, they said they originally that they were, but then ended up endorsing it. But also, after the 1929 Palestine riots, the AJC asked the U.S. government to ensure the British government protected the Jews in mandatory Palestine. So you can see a little bit of their power and over their lobbying like this. So how do we get to Ukraine now? So one of the people that, as I said, Tommy Robinson and the AFD in Germany. So here's an article about the AFD in the Times of Israel. Says, loathed by Jews, Germany's far-right AFD loves the Jewish state. Also in Breitbart, Jewish AFD members launched Jewish group with populist German party. The party confirmed the news in a statement on Facebook this Thursday. I believe this was from 17 or 2019, highlighting increasing attacks on Jews in Germany, including prominent examples of Islamists calling for Jews to be gassed and knocking kippahs off the head of Jews in Berlin. We are proud of the courageous members of the Jewish faith who set in an example with this union, the party writes. The statement argues that many people in Germany are silent about anti-Semitism from radical Islam in order to play in the hands of the right wing and promise the AfD will speak up for the Jewish community. Then you've got these kind of contradictory statements of Dimitri Schultz, a founding member of the Jewish AfD group, agreed, telling DPA News Agency that the AfD is the only party in Germany that makes anti-Semitism by Muslims a topic without trivializing it. However, Charlotte Knobloch, a former chairwoman of the Central Council of Jews in Germany, told Bild that the AfD remains a party in which anti-Semites feel more than comfortable. The Jewish people can justify their membership in such a party to themselves is completely baffling, she added. And so what this group is, even though everybody knows that the NGOs are mostly run by Jewish NGOs, then why would the same group be so against immigrants? And the same thing going on with Tommy Robinson. Let me go ahead and show you this odd little thing going on with Tommy Robinson.
I notice you're wearing a shirt or a button that says I'm a Zionist. What does a Zionist mean to you? What is a Zionist?
Well, a Zionist is someone who believes in a homeland for Jewish people.
If there was a war tomorrow, which there will
It does denote that it is Israel first. Can you possibly serve two masters, meaning can you serve England and Israel at the same time?
Shalom. Listen, let me tell you something. Yeah? If there was a war tomorrow, which there will be, because I'll probably start at the end of this, kicked off.
I don't know why it's skipping like that.
Israel.
But there you have it with Tommy Robinson being very pro-Israel. Here's some pictures of himself in a shirt of the IDF, Mossad, and wrapping himself in an Israeli flag. There's a couple of connections of Tommy Robinson to some interesting groups like the Israeli Defense League, or was it the Jewish Defense League? I'm sorry. He is the founder of the EDL, which is the English Defense League. And he's tied to a group that was responsible for spying on and killing Rachel Corrie, who was that woman who was run over by the bulldozer during a protest. This is a little bit more information on the EDL's ties to the Jewish Defense League. A little bit more. Basically, a terrorist group running under the same umbrella. And then if you start looking at their ties to supporting Ukraine and the leader of Ukraine being Zelensky, who is working with neo-Nazis apparently to escalate war with Russia. And then you combine that with trying to water down any nationalist movements, much like they started to in America with that bill and the Oklahoma City bombing, then it starts making a little bit more sense as to why it was so important for them to get rid of these nationalist movements. Because when you infiltrate a group like the AFD, with that's supposedly very anti-immigrant and very pro-nationalist, Semites in it, like with um, Maloney in Italy, who did basically a complete 180 and started supporting everything going along with the agenda. You see that people like Andreas Strassmeyer were sent over here to go and water down and set the stage for what happened in that originally plotted this this move to expand NATO, and ends us in the situation we are now with Russia. Um, it kind of starts to make sense how they've infiltrated using Zionists into the white movements to basically take away any power from any of the strong nationalist types. And I believe that's most of what I had, but it really shows how it's very interesting that Clinton needed the Oklahoma City bombing, and so did Chancellor Cole, to go and succeed in pushing for a stronger NATO that wouldn't be opposed by people that were isolationist. I hope that kind of made sense. I know it's a lot to go over. It's kind of a lot to go and combine in this timeline, but I hope that the pictures that I showed you of Clinton's timeline, where, like I said, he meets with Helmut Kohl in February of 1995. You have the Oklahoma City bombing not too far after that. And then you have his Anti-Terrorism Amendments Act of 1995, followed by a group meeting with the American Jewish Committee, who is uh, basically one of the strongest lobbying groups. Um, they have a very long history. According to their Wikipedia, it's a civil rights group and Jewish advocacy group established in November 11th, 1906. It is one of the oldest Jewish advocacy organizations, and according to the New York Times, widely regarded as the dean of American Jewish organizations. Um, so you can kind of see how there was that anti-communist section of the Russophobes and anti-communists, even though the Bolsheviks and the communists were of Jewish lineage. So I hope that was interesting. And if I missed anything, I'll try to correct it. But I think I got all my ducks in a row there. So have a good night. After recording that, I forgot that I left out something very important, and that was what happened to our protagonist, Mr. Andreas Strassmeyer. And so, previous to the Oklahoma City bombing, about 2 weeks, Mr. Timothy McVeigh tried to request him by phone in Anaheim City, where we're not sure what communication went on, but there is a record of that phone call. And then afterwards, Mr. Strassmeyer left Anaheim City and then decided that a year later he would leave America after not getting in any trouble for overstaying his visa and being in a possession of firearms. And one of the people that helped him escape, aside from Mr. Kirk Lyons, who was the attorney, I believe this is the man that was also responsible for helping fly him out, Mr. David Holloway, who is works for or has a contract working for NASA, and he was a pilot that was also connected to, I believe, Mr. Roger Moore. So it's kind of interesting that one of the people that was involved in helping him escape now works with NASA. And the only trouble that Mr. Andreas Strassmeyer got into was they interviewed him over the phone and decided that he was not a suspect worth interrogating or pursuing any further. So pretty interesting that he just kind of got away scot-free, even though he was clearly very entangled in all of this. So that's the end of this. And if I forgot anything, I'll try to include some notes in the description.